Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here, the man who talks to machines. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, there is a certain amount of interest in, I'm not sure there's that much of it, but certainly the name Wilhelm Reich, and in recent years, and it's been about 20 years now, the influx of information on what is called orgone, and particularly the perversion of it called organite. So the whole idea is that this has gained a lot of interest, and there's always been a small, hardcore group of people that have followed Wilhelm Reich's information, which has a lot to do with psychology and sexuality, which is, I believe, the reason why his actual teachings are still available. Um, Sex is always there, and the intellectual elite, who has generally these scientific types who have all sorts of sexual hangups, find that this is a way, of course, to talk about sex and carry books around on sex that are not uh, sexual in nature or pornographic. So I think I don't. I think it cannot be underestimated the fact that his sexual reality, which bordered on the fact of having more sexual freedom, promoting promiscuity. Um, did I pronounce that correctly? But promiscuity, there we go, promoting promiscuity, which of course he didn't. But everybody thinks so. And everybody thinks a whole bunch of stuff about orgone, what's going on, I should say organite, orgone. I mean, here's a guy that you have to understand his compulsion for sexuality when he names universal energy after orgasms. So, I mean, this shows you where his mind is at. And this is all part of the sexual talking about and revolution that came with Freud, his mentor, and was passed down because nothing was talked about sexuality until Freud brought it to the forefront, and followed up even in a more radical way was the work of Wilhelm Reich, who got into the nature of the orgasm, the fact that all problems in life come from your suppressed sexuality, including all disease. This is a simplification and overstatement that is comical in this day and age, that everything would come from that. Obviously, sexuality is a big part, a compulsion, a non rational addiction of the human race. It is just staggering how much time and energy is spent in this area for virtually no benefits. Sexuality, other than the fact of reproducing society, doesn't really have much value. I mean, you may like it or anything else, but what value does it have? Just like fast food fills your belly. In the end, it really doesn't do much for you and may even hurt you. So certainly Wilhelm Reich, in his sexual thoughts and his thought of connecting energy to orgasms, and the fact that life in general doesn't work, or we have problems and hangups solely because of sexuality, I fully disagree with personally. But it gives, as I said, the pseudo-intellectual nature of all these scientists who want to talk about sexuality, and can get away with it because of the lack of sexuality there really is in Wilhelm Reich's stuff. And he didn't promote promiscuity in any way whatsoever. So the whole idea was to have a release of energy, so you didn't have clogs of energy in your body through proper sexual fulfillment, without having all the mental and things that are tied to it. But the point is, we are a society of overthinkers tied to all sorts of bizarre belief systems, and everybody is part of a religion which tells them not only how to think spiritually, but how to operate sexually. So we've got problems that are a little more than what he's talking about here, which will never be resolved. And while I believe there's a certain aspect of what he teaches that is correct, in the bigger picture, we need to stop killing everything and having a society which is based on the destruction and murder of animals so that we can live. So as long as we have that, we're going to have the problems we have. And I think that's pretty clear and easy to understand, in that sexuality is basically a very third, fourth, or fifth behind that reality. So to think how much that affects everybody and how much they operate from that society is an over-exaggeration. But as you said, it allows the pseudo-intellectuals that want to talk about sex because they're compulsion to do so, to do it in a academic way and not in a pornographic way. But you should read for yourself. The problem is people don't read anything. They don't read the work of people and understand what it is, including orgone, which apparently and of course, they continue to perpetrate that orgone and orgone accumulators were machines that used to heal people, while Reich in general stated the opposite, and that anybody he ever treated, particularly for the big C, died. This is in his literature. So he did confuse the issue himself by saying, well, people were better. Everything was reduced, their numbers were improved, but the patient died. So the operation was a success, but the patient died. This is what, and this is still perpetrated by today, and people are still using these devices to actually treat all sorts of problems. And there are people that make these machines that are available, etc., etc. All of these things are still out there. And the gossip out there, because nobody clarified this, and the people that took over from his work really never talked about this stuff in any kind of value, as well as the fact that that it did not work. And the most noted researcher of Wilhelm Reich in orgone, James D'Amato, died of cancer. I think that should tell you a lot. While he had a giant room on his property that was an orgone accumulator. So certainly you would think that even if he kept it himself, he would keep himself alive. Apparently not. He died of cancer. This is one of the constant problems we run into in this entire field, where there's always contradictory information. Oh, it's the best thing since sliced bread. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, but it worked for me. Oh, no, it didn't work for me. So the whole idea is we run into this, which is very confusing, and there's never going to be anybody to clarify this. James D'Amato didn't clarify it. The person who's taken over from him, who is not going to do anything, it doesn't seem to be very based in doing anything practically. The guy who's taken over from James D'Amato states that we shouldn't even look into cloudbusters. It's too dangerous. It's too potent. Don't even give pictures of it. This is what we need, more hidden tech. And of course, he's going to criticize the government for doing stuff when he doesn't want to release any kind of potent information. So, the poo slides downhill, people. The poo floats. That's the reality of it. So to support people like that is doing the entire area of orgone research a really disservice. But that's who's going to take over, and we're going to get more garbage from it. But you should read the work. I mean, he states this in his notes. Almost everything that Reich did was written down. He wrote many, many books, and it was written down. Most of it has been published. His research institute isn't doing much to keep his work in print, apparently. I'm not sure who owns that or what's going on. It's always confusion with that, even though this new person taking over from James DeMayo, who died of cancer, claims he's going to keep DeMayo's work in print. Which, again, has, as far as I'm concerned, has minimal value to it. Now, all of Wilhelm Reich's books are in print and available for free. It's as simple as that. I've included a link down below. You can go to the nonprofit organization, archive.org, and you can find every one of his books that you can actually download into a PDF for free. And everybody should read this work and make your own conclusions. We know nobody's going to do that. His writings are a little boring. But if you want to get it from the horse's mouth instead of the interpretation by a mental masturbator that you get from scientific types, this is the way to do it. Because, there's a lot of confusion. And it continues to be stated by people of modern times who continue to state that orgone accumulators were healing people, and people are continuing to go in these things, and it's based on gossip, when actually Reich himself stated it doesn't work. The fascinating part of Reich's work is the cloudbuster data, and DeMayo's done a lot on that. And something that we have to give him credit for is that apparently he did a lot of tests. He kept it to himself. The same old story. How do we know anything is real? 20 years later, oh well, Israel did it, Germany did. Well, the point is that none of this stuff these people want released. Again, this causes a very terrible problem, which is the fact is that you don't release information because what you're doing proves that it doesn't have any results. That's how the public looks at it, which is very single-mindedly and kind of silly because you can't necessarily do that. As a researcher, though, if you're getting results and you are kept quiet because you're bought off with money, and this isn't part of what you say, so if somebody hires you, let's say Israel, and you do results, you should state to them that this is something that needs to be reported. I'm not going to work for you if I have to be shut up. And I can't report results. Now, we don't have to necessarily report everything, but we should be able to note that this worked. Now, DeMayo did publish a lot of this indirectly by showing rain charts and everything else in his literature. So it's not like it. So, and cloud busting, of course, is like everything in life, has a legal problem with it. You create too much rain, you can be sued. You don't create it, you're a fraud. Oh, I hired you for rain, it didn't come, you're a fraud. So we're going to sue you. So it's the same old story. And that's what's happened to rainmakers throughout history is that they get sued eventually, either by causing too much rain or the fact that they couldn't produce. So it's a fascinating area, and I think rainmaking is so critically important, drawing in these energies, which seems to be able to be done, and I'm still researching it, but there is certainly a lot of literature done by James D'Amato himself in recent years of being able to make it rain, as supposedly Reich did as well in Arizona and created a lot of rain. Now, what happened at that time, which few people know, is that right after his initial experiment in Arizona, which produced a lot of rain, and it even supposedly snowed that year, which it never did before, he was arrested, not for his rainmaking, but because of the problems that were happening with orgone accumulators that apparently a trader in his organization sold without his knowledge, and then he was dragged back into court. And Reich, not being too bright, didn't defend himself properly, and there's a lot of other things involved, including the fact that apparently the attorneys on his side, if you can call it that, turned state's evidence. What? Is that even legal to do as a lawyer? So the whole idea is that these are the kind of things that just cloud the issue more. Reich was labeled as a sexual pervert, and they went after him, not for his healing, not for his cloud busting. They went after him because he was labeled as a deviant sexual freak, and the head of the FDA at that particular time wanted his butt, so they went after him. Now, what happened to him and whether he was actually murdered in prison, we don't know. Certainly, these kind of things bring that to the forefront, but Reich was overweight and a chain smoker. The fact that he would die in his 60s because he was a chain smoker is just kind of statistical data that is irrefutable that this could happen. The other hand is that obviously he was a person they wanted to get rid of. So it is very, very strange with all of the details, but read it for yourself. Get the literature out there. And there's a lot of stuff published by the Orgone Institute, now taken over by another person. Books from James D'Amato, which go into this as well. Pulse of the Planet, he talks about all the rainmaking that he did. So it's not like it's not out there, but as usual, the scientists tend to be very poor at the media and don't get this information out there. And of course, they're scared to death and everything else. There is an article by D'Amato on a guy who was making rain with a group of his students, a college professor, who died of cancer during the process. As a matter of fact, he couldn't finish his research, he had his students do it, because of the fact that he was dying of cancer. So apparently the accumulators didn't help him either. So we just don't know. This should be researched. We could have cloudbusters and confirm whether it works or not. Maybe because the corruption factor, but this wouldn't cost more than $10 to $50 million to use something that is so vital. Even if we threw $1 billion at it, which in this day and age seems to be nothing, we should be able to establish this. But the problem is, can you get any kind of governmental or research people to give you the truth? Because generally everybody is threatened and blackmailed. And of course, they're bought off. So it's usually a combination of everything. So they threaten, they blackmail you, and they say, here, take the money as well. So they get you in every single direction, which is a common way that this stuff is done. But you can get every single book that he has ever written is available for free online from archive.org for free. This is a nonprofit internet library, and all of his books are there for people to download for free. So do check that link, read something for yourself, even if you skim over a few things. His looking into bions and orgasms and all that stuff is fascinating reading, and there is something to it. The fact that he could take very simple, it can't get any more simple than an orgone accumulator than what he made, and everything he did, including the Cloudbusters, is basically something someone in junior high school could make. So this is exciting as well, because that means that you don't need $500 million worth of special research equipment to use this very potent energy. So this is another reason to investigate it. And you've got to also remember, you need to know what is real and not real. The orgone junk out there produced by so many people is just that. A lot of these little orgone pyramids are very pretty, and I bought them because I find them attractive, but they're just nothing more than a lump of poison resin with some stones and some copper coils and other things in it, which Reich specifically said don't use. Copper creates negativity. That certainly are attractive to the eye, but if anything, they are toxic. I've tested a lot of these, and they just don't put out any energy whatsoever. They're not really toxic, except in a crude manner. They just don't do anything. And to think that orgone and all of this stuff does anything is not. My testing of orgonite, done by the Satanist Carl Hans Wells, who put this formula together, has shown that it's extremely toxic. He himself has died, as his wife and so many orgonite practitioners. So this is really bad energy, and another reason why you should inform yourself. You need to stay away from, as I always say, you need to know what doesn't work and stay away from that stuff. You're wasting your money on a bunch of stuff that potentially could hurt you. So we have to be very careful of this. But, don't go by other people's opinions. Don't go by my opinions. I always tell people these are not my opinions generally. Of course, I guess they are. But mine is based on a researcher of over 55 years. And what I am seeking is truth and gnosis. And almost everything that I talk, I would say 99.9% of what I talk about is verified by third parties. They say the same thing that I say myself, and I have been able to verify this. So it's not my belief system only. Obviously, I have my own beliefs and my own scientific practices as well. But the point is that you should know for yourself, what did he say about this? Again, while he was for free sexuality and for people not having hang-ups, he wasn't out there telling people to become a swinger's life. I don't think that becoming a swinger, and we do have some research into this now, people who are overly sexual tend not to live longer. They have a shorter life expectancy, so it's not helping them. It's certainly not releasing the energy, as Reich would say, a deep release and relaxation, which is what he thinks sex was all about, so that you would then have a proper flow of energy through the body so you would not become ill with anything. Basically, that's his philosophy when it comes to sexuality in a sentence. Really, that's all you need to know. The other stuff is that Cloudbuster itself seems to work. And there seems to be huge amounts of data proving this. Since it's such a potent energy to have, and to have control of rain would solve so many problems, it is totally and completely suppressed, which is bizarre unto itself. But what isn't? The problem is that I guess they could regulate and make money off of it, but the bottom line is that, the rain is kind of free, and if you produce rain, and that it is not going to help. But, we do have to grow food and everything else, so all these things. But of course, the people in power don't care. If an apple costs $100, they'll have that money because they stole it from you. But all of this is something that we should look into seriously, and you should know what the facts are behind that. And of course, I try and bring this to people. What it appears is that the cloudbuster at this particular time is 100% proven technology to bring rain, and it does work. Like everything, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't bring enough. Sometimes it brings too much. This could be more verified through research. But in general, it appears that it does work in a world that is hungry for fresh water as more and more of our planet turns into desert. And as such, as Reich would tell you, creates more and more negativity and violence in life. It's the dry places that, without the moisture content, that tend to be the more violent places. And again, I don't necessarily agree with that because the entire world is violent, whether you're living in a water community or not. Some of the most violent people on the planet were the Polynesians, who invaded and killed everybody that they could. So this is all another story that doesn't necessarily add up. But the rest of his stuff, it certainly is interesting. It would be interesting for everybody to play around with cloud busting and even with accumulators to a degree. But the accumulators seem to be something that produces very toxic energy and gives you very little results. So we've got to keep that in mind. This is what, from the discoverer's mouth himself, Wilhelm Reich, is that he was really, per his documents, and he may have been doing this deliberately, but to move away from the healing. But the bottom line is that everyone that he treated for the Big C died, and that's in his actual documents. So the point is to think that this is quote, curing anybody, unquote, certainly is not coming from anybody but people that seem to want to make money from this. So orgone in itself is a very toxic energy to be used in that particular fashion. And we have to do a lot of research in that area to find out. And I've said this for years, can we filter orgone so that, and I believe you can, to make it more pure, so that it doesn't have these side effects, and to strengthen the positive effects. And I believe this can be done with proper research into energy physics when you get involved with it. The energy physics is what's always ran the world and the universe as of today. It's the subatomic particles, the creation of everything that really takes care of the physical. But certainly the cloud busting technology, which the new people taking over don't want to release, again, creating more problems, certainly is something that people should look into. Now, what are the effects of these? What happens if you have a giant cloudbuster around you and use it all the time? Can that be detrimental to you? Well, we just don't know. Some people claim that they use small cloudbusters all the time and they have no problem whatsoever, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm not really sure what the bigger picture are. And, whatever results you personally get, well, it doesn't mean too much in the bigger picture. It has to be based in just common sense. Can it be repeated by most people? If it can't be repeated, then it doesn't have any value to the world. To you, if it works for you, more power to you. People should find out what works for themselves personally and use it. But you also have to not be deluding yourself. You may be slowly killing yourself based on the fact that everybody says this is good, but it really isn't. So this is always the problem we run into, and part of the path of this reality that we all have to deal with, whether we like it or not. It's a complicated issue like everything in life, and there are all sorts of legalities, etc. But get the information from the horse's mouth. You can read all of his books for free online. Actually, you can download these to PDFs. I've done it myself here from archive.org, the internet library, which everybody should know about because you can get all sorts of books there for free. Many of them you can't check out, but you can read them online. And how many do you really need the book itself? Well, you really don't. You're taking the information out of it. Having another book that's another brick on your back. I had over 3,000 at one time. I don't think it's much of a help. It's more of a hindrance. What do you do with them? And how many times do you reread the same book? I almost never do that because there's new information I want. Why do I want to read the old stuff again? So I really don't do that. And the fact is that long books are near impossible to go in and pull data out of that you want to reread again. So the whole idea is you should use a service like this. There are several of them out there. And of course, like and Make sure you like this. Make sure you subscribe. We have Patreon where we give people a lot of other information. I mean, learning just where to get a whole bunch of free stuff in itself is worth a fortune. And there are many resources out there that you can get things for very low cost or free. And this is very, very important to any researcher, anybody seeking the truth. As I said, you don't really need to believe what I tell you. Do your own research. But who's going to do their own research? You have to find a knowledgeable person who has reached over the state of common stupidity, someone who has really higher state than the average human, which is myself, reached to this high level of gnosis that can really interpret the information properly. Everybody else is pretty much been corrupted in one way or another by their own personal beliefs, by the beliefs of whoever they study under, so it's difficult. But, there's nothing better than yourself reading the information and not getting it second, third, fourth, and fifth hand from other people who most likely didn't even read the information or have misinterpreted it. Until next time.